right, welcome back to Behind the Filter podcast. And today we have a guest that already came on the podcast, but is back here for a second episode. We have Ryan Sweda with us. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, as promised.
Yeah.
Back for number 2.
I know. So, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Doing good. Yeah, it's January still for us. So we're slowly, I would say, crawling our way through January. I feel like with the winter weather and like the January blues is like it's real right now.
It started that holiday season. We were talking during that holiday break, and it's that weird break between Christmas, New Year's, and then when you have to get back to work.
Yeah, and you literally have no idea what you're doing.
But that still seems like it's continuing as it is the 9th of January. So we're still in that funk.
Oh, I will be glad when that cloud is kind of lifted because I don't feel like it's completely gone for me yet right now. Maybe by next week.
Everybody. Yeah, I think that's everybody at this point. But
hopefully by the time this airs, we'll be in a good pace.
Yes, and hopefully the bank accounts were basically recouped from the holiday season and that as well.
Holiday season, and then my son's birthday is 2 weeks after Christmas.
So I did see that.
It sucks.
You should have planned that better. You should definitely plan that better.
Definitely plan that better. It's so funny because it's coming up, but it sneaks up on you every single year.
Yeah, I meant the kid part and when he was going to be delivered, not the fact that he didn't have the money.
He was planned, actually. That was a planned C-section. I walked in and I just had him. I was like, "Hi, I'm here to have my child."
That sounds like a pretty easy way to do it.
Yeah, I just walked right in.
We don't have to worry about that as men. We just have to be there for it.
So how was your first time being on a podcast? Like, how was your experience for you after everything aired and all of that?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing experience and had a lot of positive feedback. So thank you to everybody who's watched. Made a lot of great comments, a lot of likes, a lot of things, support for you and the show. So it was very eye-opening, as we kind of discussed. And, I send Jeanette messages of the positive things I've gotten. I'll keep names out of it. But we had a lot of good feedback and a lot of things from people that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
And that's kind of the idea of what we've discussed with men in therapy or therapy in general.
Right.
Having the opportunity to talk about it and tell my story and things that have happened to me are probably what's happening to 90% of the people out there with today's stresses and things in the world. So it was good to come on the platform and continue to come on the platform to discuss not only mental health, but, men's health, women's health, or therapy in general for everybody. So, very positive. And again, thank you for allowing us to get the message out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also had some compliments on you looking like a specific celebrity.
Yeah, I don't know if
on TikTok. We had a couple of those.
I always hear Matt Damon, so that's been around for a bit. Don't have the bank account like him or nothing that way, and a little heavier than him. But,
it was just so funny to me, though, because, I'm just posting clips normally, and then all of a sudden these women start, responding, and I'm like, what are they doing? And then I start reading them. I'm like, oh, he does kind of resemble Matt Damon a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. So thank you to those comments. I appreciate that. But, it's flattering as always. So thank you.
And also, I think out of all of our YouTube views, yours was the highest viewed out of all. I mean, this is episode 18 now. So
beautiful.
It was the highest viewed, which was kind of nice. So it just reconfirms to me that it's really good for us to have these types of conversations, especially from a male's perspective on the things that we're discussing, because I think people really find it valuable. Obviously, we're a little bit more female driven with a lot of our topics that we talk about.
Sure.
Ashley's here too behind the camera. So I think it was just kind of nice to get a lot of that feedback too. So it was good.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback on that as well. But yeah, as you said, it's more primarily, after dark, and those types of conversations revolve around other topics of the dating world and things of that nature. But I think ours was pretty heavy for a lot of men. We had, again, a lot of comments from men. A lot of great things coming from it, and again, wish everybody who's out there struggling through one of their journeys. There's going to be highs and lows, but at the end, as long as we keep the peaks and valleys kind of a slower height and depth. Basically, that's kind of what we're all trying to evolve for in life, not these severe peaks and valleys of emotional roller coasters.
Oh my gosh, those are the worst.
They are, and been through them, and you still go through them. We talk about past insecurities and trigger points, and looking back at yourself as you're in a relationship, and then somebody does something, and it's not that person that's doing it for you. It's just what you've learned from previous experiences.
Yes.
So, we'll dig into all that kind of stuff as we continue. But yeah, it's amazing once you go through therapy, or you start having these self-reflections. As we kind of talked about last episode, a lot of it's your own insecurities. A lot of it, you have to look at yourself and take accountability and reflection of yourself. So sometimes when you do that, it gets dark and it gets lonely, and then you're in that pit. But trust me, once you get out of there and you start working your way up, man, the other side's so much better.
Exactly.
So
Totally understand that.
Yeah, keep moving forward.
And we are continuing the conversation of just more in-depth conversation about therapy, because Ryan, you have done several different types of therapy.
Yes.
And I just found it fascinating because number one, what we talked about with, men in therapy, there's issues with that in terms of men not wanting to get therapy or thinking they can solve it on their own and not really realizing that they could use the additional help. But you went to a further step and said, I'm going to do therapy, but I'm also going to do different types of therapy because, I don't know what actually made you decide to be like, you know what, I'm going to step out of the box and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, it was interesting because when you talk about therapy could be so vast for anybody, right? So my idea of therapy in the beginning was a clinical setting, right? We talked about the lady that would sit there and write things down and just not say anything besides, and it's like, okay, what am I getting out of that?
What does the mean?
Yeah, and it makes you think, right? It makes you overthink. It makes you think, okay, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
I need somebody to give some feedback. So in terms of therapies and what I've gone through and what I've had to not go through was, the clinical setting, finding my life coach, who's more on the spiritual path, amazing human being. I know that you were talking about getting with Dana at some point. So, and then getting in with a male therapist. But not only that, looking at Project 369, which is a totally separate kind of therapy in the sense of how things operate in the world, but then shadow work. And I don't know if you've ever done shadow work, but that's really deep and dark. So what happened was I was doing all these different therapies, working out like crazy, doing all this crazy stuff. And then I heard this amazing thing because I got paralyzed because you're doing so much. And then all of a sudden you get conflicting information from shadow work versus therapist versus life coach.
It's like information overload.
It was, right? And the best way to explain it was, the way it was explained to me was every motivated person on Mount Everest who died was once motivated. So kind of temper your expectations and don't have to rush everything, right? All these people that are dead on Mount Everest were once really highly motivated. And I was highly motivated to become this healed version as quick as possible. But the problem was I became, overcome with too much information. So then, you kind of relapse, or so to speak, in terms of relapse, you kind of look at it and go, man, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Am I trying to be a better father, trying to be a better this, better that? And at the end of the day was, okay, I'm trying to be better for everybody else, but am I being better for me?
Right.
And that's where you have that reset. So you talk about therapies or loving yourself. That's the big thing I kind of had to step back and say, okay, I'm doing everything, but am I doing it for me or am I doing it for everybody else? To take that image and be like, look, I'm healing. I'm doing things the right way.
Yeah.
So that was that aha moment I had with therapy. My life coach is really good at just letting me talk and giving me a little bit of information here and there, but making your own conclusions. And I finally told her, a situation that happened, and I said, hey, as my life coach, I need the feedback like right now. And she did. And I was like, damn, I knew the answer. Didn't want to admit it. I was in the wrong.
You needed a confirmation from a second party.
Sometimes you need validation. Sometimes you need validation, right? And, after certain things that have happened with the conversations, it was like, okay, I'm in this, I'd say, dishwasher or washing machine. I just keep spinning around. How do I break out of that? And then that's where they're strategic on helping you get to that next level. So in different forms of therapy, it could be music therapy. Obviously, you love music. I think most of the people love music out there.
Yeah.
Can find a different way to relieve stress, anxiety by blasting certain songs.
Yes.
And it's funny because, as you talk about in the dating world, when I was in the dating world, it was interesting that you would listen to songs or you'd talk to people, hey, what's your kind of favorite music? And they'd be like James Arthur's Impossible or something of that. And you listen to lyrics, you're like, man, you're still really hurt. You listen to those things, so you can pick up on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But so music has this beautiful way of really kind of, as you say, vibes and stuff. Really kind of getting to know somebody through music and what they listen to and how their life's kind of going. It's my opinion. I could be way off, but that's just my opinion. And more so times that I tested that theory. Unfortunately,
that
you're
seems
right.
to be true because I think a lot of times music, when I listen to it, is based off of my mood too. So it's like sometimes, like I want to hear all the ratchet shit, and then other times I want to hear, my worship music from church. So,
well, that's dramatically different shift right there. But yes, I mean, ratchet to worship.
That is literally my personality.
Yeah.
She's dying.
Yeah. So that's interesting to say, but
it's just me. It really is. Like,
yeah. So it is interesting because, you go through something in life and all of a sudden you're even on the radio, right? The universe or whatever you want to say, you'll get this song that comes up that you haven't heard in a long time or reminds you of somebody that you were just thinking of. So it's interesting how those things all interconnect. So in therapy, bringing it back to therapy was paying attention to the small things and trying to not overanalyze, overthink it. I'm an overthinker. So I was trying not to overanalyze, like, okay, now the universe or this song came up. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Like, just let it be. Let it be. Stay in the moment. Just do the next right thing.
Oh, that is so hard because sometimes a song comes on and it comes on right when I need to hear it. And then I'm like, that was confirmation or I needed that sign or something. There was always a connection with it. I can't just sometimes just sit in it.
Yeah, you can, but sometimes you have to, right?
Yeah.
And then and we talked about this story recently with what happened and the individual that left, that you did this and somebody's going to betray or somebody's gonna, and all of a sudden you're like, man, now that gives you a day of anxiety until you find out what that news is. Now you're overthinking. Now your anxiety levels go up. So, yeah, I think part of the big thing with therapy with learning is just stay present. Don't overanalyze. Don't overthink it. And that's hard. That's hard because you have these things that come up from your past or you have these things that remind you of either a good or a bad time in your life. And either you want to forget about it, but you can't. So how do you go back to those moments where they were tough, but there's still unresolved issues or conflicts or, we talked about last episode, you're sitting there and all of a sudden, crap, I just had this come up and I have to call that person and apologize for something. So it's the same thing with these memories, they keep reoccurring or these things keep reoccurring in your life. You have to deal with it. And I was running away for a long time. And that's the other thing with therapy was different forms of therapy have allowed me to attack those previous things in life with grace and humility and be like, okay, I understand it, whether I apologize, whether I don't need to, whether I just have to acknowledge it and move on.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is sometimes you don't need to have acceptance or apologies or anything from the other half. As long as you're good with yourself to let that go, then you can heal and move on.
Yeah.
Or you can, whatever the situation may be, you don't need that validation or anything from that other person or other being or whatever it may be in the universe that's holding you back.
Yeah.
You don't need that. You can just go ahead and let it go as long as you're good with yourself. So,
what I know you mentioned shadow work, and I know I've done some, you do some. What is your when you first thought of shadow work, did you do research on it first or did you come across it? How did you come across it? And what made you decide, let me go ahead and try this form of therapy?
So
because I think a lot of people don't know. They probably have heard of it, but they don't really know what it is.
It's wild because my life coach and I, we were just in the starting phases of getting to know each other. And I knew her, but haven't really worked with her at that time. So I met her once or twice. We never talked about 369 or shadow work. I was just doing some research online and looking through, and I just ordered the Shadow Work Journal and the Project 369. I get them both in, I kid you not, the same day, and I take a picture, and she's like, you got to be kidding me. And she takes a picture that she just started within a certain amount of time. We never talked about it, but we were both doing the same kind of work in the same scope and the same time frame. So it's strange. But, yeah, shadow work, for those who don't know, it really makes you look at yourself. Right? It really makes that accountability where you're not running away. And you kind of mentioned men in therapy, and you feel sometimes they may not be so forthcoming or wanting to go. I can tell you it's the same on a woman's side, right? And maybe not for you or whoever else in particular, but the people that I have been around, if you're not ready, you're not ready. And,
Oh, yeah.
And some
True.
of those people I've been around aren't ready. And
I know from
fine.
my side, it's more cultural than anything. Like Latinos are like, you don't need therapy, and the newer generations are like, yeah, we do because we're kind of messed up from the prior generations.
It is crazy. Yeah, you talk about that generational trauma, but yeah, it is crazy because there is this shift. You see it with employments. You see it with that. There's a shift for self-love, self-care. Really, people wanting to make sure they actually live their lives, not work their lives away.
Right.
And I feel that younger generation is doing a great job. The way the internet works and all these other things and influencers and all these other craps, day trading, people are making a living just enough to get by. They don't need the big mansions anymore. They're just happy with being content and living their life.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting shift to see because, yeah, the mental health part of that seems to be more prevalent now than it has in years past. It's more mainstream. The concern sometimes I have is now celebrity endorsements into things like, online therapy. I don't know if I could say the name of the company, right? But you have BetterHelp, and they're putting Tom Brady, and they're putting all these people in there. That's great. It draws attention to it, But there's always that devil's advocate. Why are we hiring celebrities to talk about mental health? Is there a kickback?
That's always been something that's been so frustrating for me. Like when people say, "Oh, who's your like role model or who's your idol?" Like for people to say a celebrity to me, I'm like, okay, do you know them on a personal level that makes you want to idol them, or it is a complete 100% disconnect for me, because for me, if I'm going to look for somebody, it's going to be somebody I have a personal relationship, that I have a deep relationship, who has helped me and propelled me to like move my life forward, not somebody who we're separated by like millions of dollars and complete different status in different ways and all of that stuff. Like that makes it's annoying. And then to have them be, and I get it, you have a certain status or stature and you can leverage that for different causes, and that's great. But I think there's also a fine line with that though too.
Yeah, and again, we're talking, I'm not anywhere near that stature, and I never will be in life, and that's fine. But, I think the conversations of mental health, even if it is a celebrity endorsement for good cause, is always a good cause. And I think that's, a funny thing you mentioned about who you would idolize, and that the deeper you get into the work, and I don't know if you've seen this, the smaller your circle gets.
Yes.
So then somebody that you thought at one point you would idolize, you're like, I need a new idol. So it's the same thing with celebrities, if you were a fan of Tiger Woods.
Because my circle right now, it got even smaller at the beginning of the year.
I got 2 or 3 like good friends.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Same.
And I don't need more, because the more I had, the more I didn't align with, guys would have different women's names in their phones, but it'd be under guys' names. Like, I don't align with you with that.
Right.
I don't align with that value, ethics, morals. And if I allow that to stay in my life, then I'm going to be, as we talked about mirrored neurons, like you let that hang around you long enough.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll creep in. It eventually will.
Oh, and absolutely. So, maybe not in that specific instance, but a piece of that is going to manifest some way in your life.
My belief is yes. Yeah. And people could disagree with that, and that's fine. But I mean, again, when you start going through those processes of healing, and whether it's because of a divorce, a death, or whatever it is that gets you to a point to go through a healing journey or process or an enlightenment process, you go, okay, I don't wish this on anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be tight with who I know, who I interact with, who have the similar values, because once you start messing with my peace, that's an issue. Yeah. Right? And that's an issue. And it may not just be the example I gave. It may be just some other thing that, you do something unethical at work, or you do something, and it becomes a habit. And things happen. I get it. Things happen. But if it's a persistent issue or a persistent thing, then yeah, you have to kind of look at that and be like, is this person the best to have around my network?
Right, exactly. Going back to shadow work, was there a specific thing or exercise that you absolutely hated doing?
Yeah, looking at yourself, right? I mean, that's...
Well, and because I know there's different exercises or different books that, you can go through and all of that stuff. So I'm just wondering if there was like something specific that like, you're like, yes, I am grateful I went through that. But when I went through it, I effing hated it.
Nothing in particular. I think I held... So my big thing that they always ask, do you have any regrets in life, right? So one of my biggest regrets that I didn't know was a big deal until it was a big deal, until I started dealing with it, was I'll never forget. My brother and my father were up at the property hunting. It was Thanksgiving or near there. We talked about the grandparents having the big Thanksgiving
Yeah.
dinners. And little did I know that Thanksgiving would be my grandfather's last. Right. So I get there. I get there late, 1 o'clock or whatever. But I want to leave to get back before it gets dark to go hunting. So I did like a real short dinner, sit down high. Didn't really interact with people. But that was the last Thanksgiving dinner that my grandfather was around for. And so I look back and I was like, because I was selfish, because I was selfish in other ways in my marriage or in previous relationships or with my kid, whatever it may have been, I lost out on the beauty of the moment, right? Living in the moment because of my own selfish needs or my own wants, which again, in New York, the hunting season was like 2 months long. So why? Why? And so that was the hard thing for me to understand, to realize, then let go. Because again, once that one grandparent passes away, the aunts and uncles and the kids that want to do their own thing, they start having kids and they don't want to drive 2 hours or an hour and a half in. So that kind of set the pace for the, I say, dissolution or disbursement of those holiday events. And it was really tough because we tried, not we, me personally, my mom and a few other people tried to get together, had the family events after that, and it just never really took off. So the only time you see these people or talk to them is either Facebook or Instagram or if there's a funeral. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the unfortunate thing that I had to go back and learn. But as far as shadow work goes, there wasn't a particular thing because it was all tough.
Yeah.
Right. It all makes you look at it. And if for those who don't know, there's a lot of shadow work journals online. There's no particular one, but
it's a lot of introspective, things that are hard.
Yes. And again, you have to be ready for it. You have to be willing to not just write it down and be like, never mind. It's like mostly like a lot of people with New Year's resolutions, right?
Yeah,
with 2 weeks
just
in,
talked
it's
about
too
that.
tough. It's way too tough. I'm just going to quit.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I seen this, if it was yours or Heather's or somebody's Instagram thing. They're talking about the amount of growth that you're able to achieve is the amount of truth you're willing to look into yourself and admit, right? And it's probably way off of what I said, but similar, right? You're not going to grow if you're not going to look and be honest with yourself. And how honest do you want to be, and how much do you want to look into yourself?
Right.
That's the level of growth that you're able to achieve. So, again, I thought I was growing quite a bit, but then I did the shadow work. I'm like, man, I got a lot more to do.
Yeah.
And I still have more to do. And I don't, like I told you last time, I took the step on a staircase that I don't even know has an ending. But I at least took the step, and I keep moving up.
That's good.
And sometimes, like you said,
I don't think that will ever have an ending. I think if you're in a space where you are on that goal to healing and going through therapy, different types of therapies and stuff, I think your inclination at that point is just to continue and to keep, because you're going to keep growing, you're going to keep learning,
sure,
and you're going to continue to look at yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I had to figure out was why alcohol was a trigger to me. Right? It had nothing to do with my ex-wife. It had nothing to do with my kids. It was all internal, right? So you start going down that road, and shadow work pulled it out. Therapy pulled it out. All those things pulled it out. And it was nice because as you get deeper into that, you realize you don't want to get back into that world. Now, yes, I can drink and be totally different now than what I used to be.
Right.
But now I find more peace instead of, drinking at home or whatever. I have a steam sauna. I have a acupuncture mat. I'd rather just sit there and learn. They got an app called Masterclass that you can learn from experts in their fields about different topics. So that's now a form of therapy for me. So as we talk about these therapies and what it is, it's really what you find enjoyment in doing that brings you peace.
That was, it's so funny that you just mentioned that, because that was going to kind of be my next segue, because obviously you do have the traditional forms of therapy, but those extend, doing stuff that is obviously going to give you peace, and either maybe gym is sometimes your therapy, or doing yoga or stretching or sitting outside and grounding yourself and all those things. So what I was going to ask is, what other forms that you do that's physically just grounding yourself and making yourself be more at peace. What do you find works for you?
I mean, there's a variety of things, right? So you were in the fitness world, working out is an amazing form of therapy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also one of those things where if you take it too far sometimes, you could reverse yourself into, body dysmorphia, things of that nature, right? So you competed. I just went through a bulk cycle. Now I'm in a cut cycle. And it's like, God, this is
Yeah,
miserable.
I know.
This
Yeah.
is absolutely
Oh,
miserable.
when you bulk, that's the worst. You feel like you're just
I
like a.
felt better bulking. I
You
cutting.
do?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
like
I
to eat.
opposite. I feel
So
like gross and just like round, and that's probably the best way
round.
I can describe it. Is I just feel round
Yeah.
when I bulk. I love the cut because I want it all gone.
No, and that's probably interesting because my trainer Matthew out of Barstow, amazing human being, and he's been with me when I was at my worst, and he's a fantastic individual who is not only my trainer but a good friend of mine and a good therapist, right? So every time I talk to him every week, maybe every other week. And then we discussed basically the training program, the meal plan, all the intakes and all that stuff. But then he'll start asking about your life. And that's when you know you have somebody special in your life that says, I'm not here just for your money.
Absolutely.
I'm actually here to find out how are you doing, because we had some similarities in certain things. And he's a few years or significantly younger than me, I think 10 years. But it's amazing because he's out on the West Coast, different ideologies, different vibes, different things, and different ways of approaching an issue. So I used him. I bounced things off of him. Like I said, so in terms of therapy, yes, as you mentioned, it could be hundreds of millions of different forms depending on what you think. Me personally, I like mowing my lawn, right? I find that therapeutic. I don't know why.
I've heard a
But,
lot
yeah.
of people like mowing their lawns. They just find it very
Yes.
peaceful.
But then again, I'm really particular on the stripes. So if it's not perfectly, so there's
Somebody
how
told
far
me-
you go over that line.
I felt like somebody said, maybe it was my boyfriend who mentioned vacuuming.
Okay, no, I do not find no.
I swear, I think it was him because he was saying like how like the lines are just satisfying to see the lines.
So he would love to mow if he had a big enough lawn to stripe it then, for sure. Oh, absolutely. Roombas are great, by the way. So, household chores like that still aren't very high on my list
Yeah,
for
that's not on mine.
therapy,
I was like,
I'll be honest
that's
with you.
not a form of therapy for me.
No. I mean, really, if you look at therapy, every day it's got to be music.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it puts you in a mood. It tracks. I don't know why. I feel like it tracks where you're at, and if you're awake enough to say, man, that's my playlist is getting a little weird, what's going on. So if you're in the gym, I'm into heavier metal or whatnot to get me through. But then I mean, country or 1970s, 80s, 90s rock, things of that nature. Music is therapy for me. It's probably one of my biggest therapy tools daily. But, you talk about talk therapy. I love talking to people. I love getting to know people and making that connection. So there's talk therapy. One thing I was really big on, and I have to get back to it, is daily journaling or what they call WET, written emotional therapy. So for those people who don't really want to talk to somebody, if you actually write on a piece of paper and really mean it, what's bothering you, what you're willing to let go. Some people call it a burn book, right?
Yeah.
As long as you put it in with true intentions, like you would shadow work or anything, you're really being honest, open, and vulnerable. There's nothing stopping you from pulling that out and burning that page, throwing it away, doing whatever to let that go. So I found very good value and benefit from doing that a few times. So therapy is just ever evolving.
Yeah,
believe.
for a long time, I journaled for a super, super long time when I was going through therapy. And I was going like, I think at that point, I think I was going to therapy twice a week. And I had journals, like books and books of journals. And then one day I woke up and then something in me was just like, why do you have these still? So
Because you're holding on to something still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I threw them all out.
Yeah.
So all the things I wrote, so for me, it signified I'm moving on with my life. These things were at one point served a purpose. They no longer serve me a purpose because it's making me look back, and I don't want to look back anymore.
Sure.
And I threw them all in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I do journaling, yes, I don't want to hold on to anything in the past. So you're always trying to build in blocks, right? So journaling for me looks different. It's more of an accountability tool now. Hey, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do my daily gratitude. What am I thankful for first? Before I even get out of bed, what am I thankful for?
Yeah.
Right. And then, I already know from the night before kind of what I want to achieve that day. And it's more of a discipline now versus writing paragraphs of, what I felt, how I felt. I hate this person. I love this person. Because, you hold on to that and you don't let that go. It's still a way for you to go back there and find a dark place. So maybe you were at your lowest points at some point and you're writing some really bad things and that's the journal you happen to find and read through. Now all of a sudden it takes you back there, right? So to your point, yeah. Getting rid of the past is what we're all trying to do, and not saying it's good, bad, or different, but you can't change it.
Right.
You can't change it. But if you take a look at your patterns and say, am I changing my habits and my patterns to be a better person today than what I did yesterday?
Yeah.
And that's where I think the journaling was good for me, and I stopped for a little bit, and then I realized, oh crap, I'm kind of in that dishwasher or the washing machine again, where it's just like, all right, I need to get back to my discipline. I need to get back to my regimented schedule. So yeah, I do believe daily journaling, at least of what your goals are to accomplish that day, because you have a lot of outside factors that pop in. You get phone calls, you got work. With kids, you never know when you're going to get a call that one of them's sick, has to be picked up. There's so many different things in life that if you can make a list of 15 or 10 or whatever it is you want to achieve in that day, and you hit 8 out of 10, that's a pretty good day.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a really good day. But if you don't make a list and you say, I want to do this, clean the house, and you look at it and you go, I'll do it tomorrow.
I think I mentioned this. I can't remember. It was a podcast with you, our last one or another one, that like I have the most, because I use the Notes app in my phone a lot.
Okay.
And sometimes like I will throw in things there that I feel like are journal-ish, but then I also throw random stuff in there. And then all of a sudden now I have like 300 notes, and one note will say like blue lighting, or one will say 1799, and I'm like, what was that about?
Really?
It was like or I'll start to write a list of like the things I need to get done for the day, but for some reason I start a new list to the list.
Yeah, that's
gets
procrastination nation there for sure.
Super convoluted. I'm the queen of procrastination. Like, it's so bad.
That's why I firmly believe in paper and a book.
Yes.
Because digital wise, you could sit there, you could be doing 5 different things, hit your notes section, hit talk to text, talk, and then you go back and look at it and go, what? What was I even trying to, did I see a billboard that says $17.99 on it? Like, what am I trying to achieve here? And then you just decide to erase it all and you lose everything. So me personally, yes, I'm a old school book guy with a pen, and it could be a small one, could be a good sized one, whatever you feel. But I do think there's a lot of great daily gratitude journals out there as well to keep you on track. Hey, what are you thankful for? What are you grateful for? So it's amazing to see the support and pouring into the mental health network in the realm that, hey, you can make it inexpensive for people. A book's like $14.99.
Yeah.
And it's not as challenging as shadow work, put it that way. So at least you have some stuff to be grateful for, because shadow work pulls you the opposite way to then put you in that upward trend.
Right,
so.
Absolutely. Is there any like anybody specifically that you either listen to, like another podcast or something? Because I know you said you like to listen to other people and kind of educate yourself on different sectors. Do you find anybody that you're like, oh, I love listening to this person because it helps me mentally?
Yeah, I mean, Jay Shetty's always a big one, and one of the therapists that I knew through social media. Kara kind of told me about him, and I started researching him and started looking into him. So a very fantastic individual, and hearing about some of these stories that he's gone through, and then how he's kind of talking to celebrities now. I still find value in that, but I want to reach out to the people that are just us, the common people, right?
Yeah.
And nothing against him. I mean, but as your subscription, he's the #1 health podcast in the world, right? So, you're not going to do that by interviewing, Ryan Sweda or Jeanette Cruz. So there's that there. A very, very beautiful individual, human being to look at. But, in terms of podcasts, I'm not a huge podcast guy. I'm not. Again, looking at people, I don't think I would say I have any inspirational people I follow because of the fear that most of these people you follow are celebrity statuses. Yeah. And what are they tied to? And then when the other shoe drops, or something happens in their life and you come out about infidelity, you start questioning yourself.
I follow, like on Instagram, a lot of inspirational accounts, but they're not specific people.
Okay, yeah.
So I do a lot of that, and I will like my saved thing on IG is insane because
Is it like the live, laugh, love things? Okay.
Kind of, but
Okay.
they come from all like different aspects of life and stuff. And so then
Yeah.
that's one of the ones I go back for a lot of my inspo motivation that I read for the morning. And then I have like I have the Bible app that will pop up for devotions, and I was doing so good on that, and then I don't know, life happened. And so I see it pops up, and then I'm like, it's life because I swipe it. I'm like, I'll do it. And then I don't end up going back to it. And then I don't finish my devotion. So it's bad. So bad.
No, I think those inspirational things have meaning. So yeah, as soon as we talked about algorithms last time, as soon as you do one or two, now all of a sudden your
gosh, they all
Facebook
pop
or whatever
up.
feeds in that. Yeah. So no, there's a lot of great things out there in social media. Again, my opinion on it is still more detrimental.
Yeah.
Than it is positive. So it's really what you choose. I mean, it's really what you choose to put in your Instagram. Again, what you're interacting with on a daily basis. It can tell you a lot of things. It can tell you a lot of things. So,
what would you say to a man specifically that maybe started to do therapy and, possibly is exploring different types of therapy, but is kind of afraid to take that next step because they're just like, oh, I don't want to get into the craziness of it all and the random things that happen out there?
that's a good question. I mean, because again, therapy is so vast.
It is.
If they go in a clinical setting, there's a lot of ways from a clinical setting to get back into, again, self-love, self-care. And I think that's really what I found in therapy. One of the major things for me was, as we talked about, I had to have an ego, and I still have to for my job.
Yeah.
I still got to just go out and dominate, right?
But it has to be healthy. Healthy ego is good.
Yeah, healthy ego, and that's a borderline sometimes too, right? Because sometimes you got to keep it in check. But in terms of the actual, I mean, I don't really have much to say about other forms of therapy, because there's other forms of therapy where you can go and do mushrooms retreats or ayahuasca retreats, and that's a form of therapy of enlightenment.
It is.
I would say if that's something you want to go and proceed to keep evolving, absolutely. Know the risk, know the rewards.
Right.
I don't think you really would know the rewards, but I mean those are things that have really crossed my mind as well. Some of these sacral, temples and things to do. So I think as we looked at is, as long as you're always looking to improve yourself, you can't go wrong.
Right.
Right. And I think it really starts looking at yourself and being happy with yourself. So if you're not happy with yourself, you're just portraying or projecting something that's not real. And that's what I did a few times. And I still do it once in a while. So there's a lot of times where I just, from history, just keep it in. And then that bottles up. So you talk about holding 2 glasses of water and you keep filling them up, and then all of a sudden you got to go to 1 gallon. And if you don't let go of that, it just keeps weighing you down.
Right.
Right. So I'm getting a lot better. I'm still not perfect at it, and I will never be perfect, but I'm getting a lot better of not letting things affect me or keeping them on my chest too long. So if something you said, upsets me or I don't agree with, or, I'm going to tell you quicker than I used to. And then all of a sudden, all that stuff would bottle up.
That is me. Like, I have to say, like, if I'm upset with something, I have to say it and I have to talk about it. But it's also a process for me.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll verbally have a conversation, but then I will process it, and then, like, I may go back to it again because I'll be like, you know what? I was thinking about that conversation, and I don't think I'm done having this conversation. We need to continue this conversation because I'm not done yet. Because then it stirs in my head, and then, like, then it's just really weird. I feel like how my brain works, because I will hold on to something and then it will turn into this like really crazy story in my brain, and that it goes further away from the truth than what actually it is.
I think
if that makes sense.
I think that's everybody out there who's an overthinker. I think that's reality for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Your worst enemy is your mind sometimes.
So true.
So that's what I realized. If I just get it off my chest, now, as I talked about, I'm harsh. So I have to process that sometimes a little longer, so I'm not being, harsh with my presentation of what I feel.
That happened to me last week. I did really good though. I settled. I let myself calm myself, because if I would have, something happened and it upset me, if I would have spouted at the mouth, it would have not been good. Like, I was pissed.
Yeah.
But then, like, I took a step back, and the healed version of Johnette came out a couple hours later. I was really proud of myself.
Well, good for you. Yeah. I mean, it is tough. I mean, knowing your story and what you discussed, I mean, there's got to be a lot of things that would make a lot of people go from 0 to 100. Same in my boat, same with, I think, with everybody. So the biggest thing is I want to make sure if I'm going to have a conversation, it's cool, calm, collected. So it's not the other person saying, well, look at how you're responding and reacting. It's, okay, what did I do to cause that? What did I do, or how did you take it? Maybe I misrepresented, or maybe I misspoke. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
But if you come out guns a-blazing, the reaction's typically a negative one, where they go,
I know.
like, look at how you're acting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that still happens once in a while. We're all human, but the more we can limit that, I think the better success we have in life of having healthy conversations with each other.
I'm trying, man. I've been tested.
I think everybody tries. I think everybody tries, and again,
I did good though. So I just gotta continue just to know that I need to not be so quick to respond to things. Like, let me yell inside of our conversation. So Ashley and I have 5 million like voice memos that we send each other throughout the day. Let me just verbally process me being pissed off to my best friend.
Yeah.
And then I will calm myself down.
I can't
and respond
imagine
in the
how
proper
that
way.
sounds on your end of the phone when you get a screaming message, especially when it's hooked up to your car. Right?
The volume down when the Latina comes out.
Okay.
She turns the volume down. I mean, it just happens,
Well, yeah, I
Just
get
get
it.
passionate about some things sometimes.
That's true. That's true. No, so again, with guys and even women and children, right? My kids go through, life coaching and that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I don't want to push, even though you want your kids to be like, hey, did you discuss everything? You don't want to push too much. Let them kind of figure out their own form of therapy. For kids, sometimes it's gaming. Sometimes they just need to unplug. And I didn't realize that.
That's how my son is.
Yeah, I mean, and then I look at, that's what I did when I was a kid, Sega Genesis, and just kind of just melting into something because of all these external forces that they're dealing with. So before, I used to think like I knew everything, right? And we talked about that. I knew what was going to happen before it happened. I knew how you felt based off how you came home from work. But then you have to realize, like, man, that's a human being. It's not my emotions. I didn't go through it. I don't know. So you have to let them kind of decompress. You have to let them kind of find their own forms of decompression. My ex-wife loved to work out. So it was always like, oh, you're going to the gym again? Like, gosh, you just got back from work. Not knowing, like, hey, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You have to decompress. You have to find ways to really just have time to yourself. And so the kids, whether it's social media, again, video games, whatever, as long as we limit that exposure, we still have to let them explore what it is there is. So same with men, same with women. Me personally, like I said, I love an acupuncture mat. It hurts like hell for the first couple minutes, but 35, 40 minutes later, you're totally numb and it feels amazing. Steam sauna, the same thing. So that's just me. I like to read. I like to watch these master classes and try to learn in the limited amount of time. So I really went, the way I structure my day now is I have 3 5-hour days. So from 5 to 10, 10 to 3, 3 to 8.
Okay.
Right. So I'm trying to do at least my workout and everything in the first half, make sure I start my job, tackle my toughest task between 10 and 12, and then 1 and 2:30 typically. That's how I structure the day. And then when it gets toward the night, hey, I need to prioritize my kids get off the bus. I need to prioritize my time with them from this time to this time. And then after 8 o'clock, hey, it's what I got to do to prioritize my health. So,
That's good. I like that idea.
Yeah. I mean, we still look at time the same way as we did back, in the early civilization. It's still 24 hours a day. But technology things are so much quicker. I just had a Teams meeting today for 2 hours on Microsoft Teams. When I'm done, transcribed it. You can hit Copilot and it categorizes it for you and it tells you the key points. It tells you action items. I'm like, so the way we do things now it should be dramatically shifted. So that's what I started doing to keep, again, accountability and keep myself into, am I hitting these boxes that I want to hit every day? Because again, life gets in the way.
Right.
I'm in box 2 of the day, 10 to 3, and all of a sudden my daughter or son gets sick at school. Now I have to shift. So if I didn't do the first, say third of the day the right way, I just lost all that time that I now have to make up the next day. Right. So it keeps you accountable, keeps you from procrastination, catching up on emails. We're doing less with more at work and in life. So you have to have a process and procedure, and mine is journaling and then these 3 5-hour blocks.
Love that. That's so good. And so now with like all of this, she's giving me the wrap.
Oh boy.
We're going to talk about one more thing before it
Sure.
goes out, because obviously with you and with your journey and everything
Sure.
you've gone through with, therapy and mental health and all this stuff, like you kind of have, thrown on your creativity hat per se, and you are starting something from the ground up. So tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, through this journey, always had an entrepreneur mindset, and really what is going to be unveiled over the next, hopefully, couple months is an idea of a brand that really focuses on self-love before you can love other people. So it's going to be a brand that I have high visions for. I kind of told you about the idea of just evolving this thing into an amazing, collaboration with a lot of other people, whether it be, again, having therapists in there to talk to, massage therapy, who knows? The future's bright. But so really looking at how to develop a brand for people that are common people that may not be heard, may not feel loved, but understand that being loved by yourself is really the key. So that's going to be interesting. I can say it's called Love Bomb Life. So that's the name for it. It is going to focus a little bit on clothing. We're also looking at a few other products as well. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple months to unveil that to people, and really excited for that.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I probably I would hope so. The next podcast that you're going to be on will have some more details on it. Maybe.
So. Yeah, as long as it's not next week or so. But yes, it's moving along at a good pace. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for it. I think there is a space for it.
Absolutely.
I don't think there is something like what you and I have talked about that's specifically out there for the target that you're trying to hit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of exciting things to look forward to in the future. And again, try not to get way too far over my skis, but something I'm very passionate and excited about. So thank you for bringing that to the attention
absolutely.
of people.
Oh, one more thing before we go.
Sure.
I totally forgot. So we did actually have a YouTube comment, and
boy.
they were wondering if we had any resources that we can point people to, or if you specifically had any resources that you can point people to when it came to just talking about therapy in general, which I know there's probably millions of resources that you can like pull out, but is there any like off the top of your mind that you can be like, oh, this website really works great? Or
I think
anything like reading material, anything like that?
Therapy in general, again, as we talked about, finding the right one, but there's growth therapy. That's where I kind of went to find my doctor. I mean, I'm sure he's a doctor, but my therapist, Paul Runyon, down in the Greenwood area.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of things that you could utilize out there. So growth therapy is one of them. BetterHelp's one of them.
Okay.
Those are your bigger ones. But again, we all have social media. If anybody ever had to reach out, again, they're more than willing to reach out to me privately on social media.
Cool.
I can give comments and opinions. Again, we're all here to kind of help one another get through this journey called life.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on
Absolutely,
here again.
Anytime.
And Ryan will be back on for another episode next month. So hopefully we'll have some more to unveil about Love Bomb Life and a new topic to talk about. Obviously still with mental health and some other things and some other journeys. Because the last time when Ryan and I first met, the very first meeting, like there was like 5 million ways we could go with the podcast. So we'll figure out what the next topic is going to be.
That would be good to know for sure. So.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on Behind the Filter. Remember, you can always check out the latest podcast episodes on our website at johnatcruz.com.